revolution! Hey everybody, today we are going to be reviewing Clipping's newest album, There Existed an Addiction to Blood. Okay, hold the phone. This has got to be frickin' Clipping's scariest album of all time if it's about frickin' being addicted to blood. Anyways, so what's going on here? For those of you who don't know Clipping is an experimental hip-hop group that really blends together really industrial, noisy sounds in their production with hip-hop. So if you're someone who likes the idea of hip-hop having moments where it just straight up sounds like you're blending together harsh noise with hip-hop, you might like Clipping. You might want to check out some of their discography. They're a band that really kind of rose to fame around like 2012, 2013, kind of at the same time as Death Grips. So this was kind of like, they were kind of a part of that era where that 2010s flavor of industrial and experimental hip-hop was really rising to fame. So let's see what the fuck is going on in 2019 with their scariest album yet. Let's start by taking a look at the freaking cover. That's a freaking terrifying album cover. This is gonna be the freaking scariest album of the freaking year, everybody. Okay, for real, folks, the album cover actually isn't really that scary, but the reason why I'm making so many jokes about this album being so scary, besides the fact that it has an addiction to blood in the freaking title, is because this album is going to take a lot of influence from the genre of horrorcore. Horrorcore is a genre of hip-hop that originated in the 90s that has lyrics and themes in it that are just super freaking spooky, scary. We're gonna take elements of gore and gruesomeness and blood and Satan and evil. So basically just think of your typical scary movie and blend it together with a hip-hop song, and there you go, you've got horrorcore. It's actually really freaking badass, and this album really does experiment with horrorcore in ways I really haven't heard so much before. It's really interesting. What's really going on here that I think is so fundamentally unique about this album is it really doesn't rely so often on traditional hip-hop beats. A lot of this album actually just doesn't even have like a traditional hip-hop beat going on. It's actually just like ambience, like scary ambience that you'd expect to hear in the background of a scary movie. It's just dark, evil, scary ambience with rapping on top of it. Really interesting choice. At first, it wasn't super obvious to me how creative this decision was. I actually thought maybe it was just, I thought the album felt a little bit low energy because it lacked that beat. But then on repeated listens, it kind of opened my eyes to like, wow, this album is actually venturing into very unique, interesting, creative territory that I don't hear too often in hip-hop. And I loved it, and I realized that there's actually plenty of energy going on throughout this entire album. So that's really freaking cool. I'd say this album, it maybe requires a little bit of patience if it's not immediately obvious to you. You know, this is not a hip-hop album you want to put on at a party. This is an album you want to put on when you want to feel creative, because there's a lot of creativity going on. And on top of the dark, spooky ambience and the production that sounds straight out of a horror film, if you listen to the lyrics, it also sounds very scary, horror film, horrorcore-esque, with lyrics about, you know, gore and violence and blood and just like torture. Typical stuff you'd expect from a horrorcore album. But it's really cool because if you actually listen really closely, you'll hear that a lot of that scary, gruesome lyrics, they're actually all a metaphor for police brutality and racism and living in fear of police brutality. And that's just fucking brilliant, the way he's able to bring together this political hip-hop, conscious hip-hop with horrorcore. Haven't really heard that done before, so lots of unique creative stuff going on here. Fantastic job, and this album has some really fantastic highlights in this moment. Some really fantastic moments in this album. Like, take the song Run For Your Life. One of my favorite songs off this album. Probably, honestly, is going to be one of my favorite songs of the entire year. This album features, like I said, rapping over kind of like ambience, really focuses you on the rapping itself and the lyrics. But every once in a while, there's like a car that drives by in the background, and the car is playing a beat. And the beat that the car is playing is actually the beat to the song. And so it creates this really fucking cool effect. It sounds like someone's driving by while listening to the song that you're listening to. It's a fucking mind bender. And then all of a sudden, it switches into a chorus with a delicious hook that sounds straight out of 666 Mafia. Again, we're getting that horrorcore influence. The song even references Koopsta's horrorcore album, The Devil's Playground. Brilliant album. I love the influences. I love how unique and creative it is. It just seems like there's so much creativity going on here, just pulsing with creativity. It even ends with a freaking 18-minute track of a piano fucking burning down. That is so badass. and that's really sick. So I think this album, it is a pretty long album. There is kind of a lot of waiting around for something to happen, kind of just soaking in the ambience, which is maybe not what you always expect or want from a hip-hop album. So that might be considered kind of a flaw, but it's really cool overall. It's a really unique album. I'm giving it an 8.6 out of 10. I really appreciate a lot of the creativity here. Nice job clipping on a fantastic album. 8.6 out of 10, everybody. Thanks so much for watching Punk Revolution. Nah.